so much for joining us today in this session where we're going to be sharing about how people, real life people sitting with us today here, are using Miro's latest async recording feature, Talktrack, which has just been officially launched last month. And it is a feature that we are all very excited about. We've gotten tons of great feedback already, and feature retention is going strong. Woo! And I am Sophia. I'm a product marketing manager here at Miro, and I'm here today with Vihar from Miro as well, and two very special guests who will be sharing with us about their experience on using Talktrack so far. We don't have a lot of time, but for today's talk, we will first do an intro on what Talktrack is for those who might still be new to it. And then we'll do a deeper dive with our guests on how they are using Talktrack in their companies. And at the end of this, we will have a Q&A to answer questions from our audience. So feel free to submit your questions to us in the chat, and we will hopefully be able to cover most of them at the end. All right, without further ado, let's do a, quick round of introductions. Who wants to start?
I can go.
Awesome.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Vihar Parikh. I'm a lead product manager here at Miro. I'm located in our Berlin hub, and I work on the async collaboration team very closely with Sophia, and we're the team that helped bring Talktrack to you. So really excited about this session, learn more about what Webs and Robert are doing with Talktrack, and excited, and hopefully it's inspiring to the rest of you joining. I'll pass it over to Webs.
Thanks, Vihar. And Sophia, thanks for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here. My name's Webs, and I am a senior product owner for integrations at Edmentum. I spent 10 years as a teacher and then became a software developer, and now I'm a product owner.
Yep. Hi, and I'm Rob Spellman. I'm the CIO of QTC. We're a health services company, and I've been using the Talktrack features since the beta was released, and excited to kind of share my experience with everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Didn't know, Webs, you used to be a software developer. All right. So now before we get started, Talktrack, as I just mentioned, it's still a new feature on Miro, so maybe some of you are still not yet familiar with it. So I will first play a Talktrack to get us all on the same page. So I'm going to share my screen now and play a Talktrack for you. Okay. All right, I have something over here ready. Okay. Hey there. Right now you're watching a Talktrack. Talktrack allows you to record a video or audio walkthrough of a Miro board. And the cool thing is that your recorded video is actually embedded in the board. So when people are playing it back, they're not just watching a video, they're literally walking with you on the board itself. It also means that you can actually pause and interact with the board. It's like an explorable recording, and you can even directly edit on the board itself. It's a brand new type of interactive video experience so that you can engage your viewers on a much deeper and more meaningful level. Right, I'm going to stop sharing here. So hopefully we've successfully conveyed what a Talktrack is with a Talktrack. Now we have lots to cover, so I'm not going to spend more time on that. But if you have any questions, please, again, use the Q&A section in our chat. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into our questions for our guests. Vihar, do you want to kick us off with the first one?
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Sophia, for that intro. And then again, thanks everyone for joining. So let's jump right in. And Robert, maybe I'll direct this one to you first, and you pass it over to Webs afterwards too as well. But I'm interested to hear kind of from both of you, how do you use Miro? Kind of independent of Talktrack, just day to day, really interested in how you may use Miro for your job. And how did you first learn about Talktrack, come across it?
So yeah, I'll start. At QTC, we have 18 different Scrum teams, and we're supporting multiple lines of business across the company. And I was introduced to Miro when I came to QTC. There was a team of folks here that were very passionate about the tool. And they're like, this is great for our retrospectives. And especially now that everybody's virtual and remote. So really got introduced to Miro from the retrospective standpoint. saw how excited people were about it, and I was like, oh, how else could we leverage it? And then just through one of the product emails where you guys released the beta, I saw the Talktrack, and I was like, wow, that's exactly what I was looking for. As I became CIO, I was looking for a way to kind of get my messaging out to people on a regular basis, and I didn't want to do email, so I kind of started exploring it that way.
Perfect. No, that's super interesting. And I think Sophia is going to be really excited to hear that one of our marketing emails got to you, and you were able to use that to learn about Talktrack.
It's working.
Yes. Wes, to you, same question.
Yeah, so similar experience. At Edmentum, we're an ed tech company. We have 10 Scrum teams. And it started out, so I've been using Miro personally since it was like real-time board. So it's been a minute. And when I joined Edmentum, I was one of a couple of people that were using Miro for a variety of different things, to do product mapping, to do retros. And it just gained momentum as we shared more and more about different ways that you could use Miro. And so we eventually spread it to all of our teams, and it became a tool that was like really inherent to how we do work day to day. I happened to see the email about Talktrack coming out, and basically was counting down the days until it was live that I could use it, because I saw so much potential in the tool to really bridge that gap between relying on leaving people to read something on their own and walk through it on their own, and having a live meeting. So we're a fully remote company, and it really helps us to be able to bridge that gap of being able to walk people through without having to have everyone in one place and do the whole schedule Jenga for a real-time meeting.
Absolutely.
Super interesting. That's great to hear. Pass it back over to you, Sophia.
Yeah. I heard like actually both of you said you use Miro a lot for retrospectives. Just curious, maybe the next question will be more diving deeper into like your actual use case for Talktrack. So maybe I'll start with you, Rob. Like what have you specifically used Talktrack for in your line of work?
Yeah, so I've had a specific use case. I became CIO back in April, and I remember working for a CIO years ago, Charles Beard, and he was always great. He'd put out this weekly update, CIO update, kind of let you know what was going on throughout the company, what was going on outside, and he was so committed to it. And as I became a CIO, I wanted to do something similar. I didn't want to commit to weekly, and I didn't want to use email. I wanted to kind of look for like an innovative way, something that people could multitask, listen to, and really get the message across. And with Miro, I was already used to the boards and setting up the boards and then being able to put the Talktrack on top of it. And when you send an email, you can add attachments and things like that. But using Miro and Talktrack, you can build your board. And like you showed in the demo Talktrack, right? Like being able to interact with them and show them how to use it, and speak to the presentation. And I did the first one, and I wasn't sure how it was going to go. I got such great feedback, from like, hey, we love that you did it in a t-shirt. And I have one rule when I do a Talktrack for the CIO update: it has to be 15 minutes or less. So I live by that rule.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. And I don't know what it says in our data. Maybe Bihar, more about this, but I'm guessing like the prime time for Talktrack time is probably something like less than 15 to 10 minutes or something like this, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think shorter, the sweeter, the better. The other great thing about Talktrack is if you do have many messages, you can kind of tier them and add multiple per board. So if you want to like cover things in chapter like format, or maybe you want to do one big overview and then have like chapters where you want to drill in more, you can always do that. So yeah.
And real quickly, I'll just share my board, right? If you don't mind. This is the August CIO update I did, and at that time the kids were just going back to school, and my kids are grown and they're in college. And but my niece Reagan was going back to school, so I used her photo just to kind of open it up and bring in some non-work type stuff. And then I always start with the feedback from last month and kind of addressing that. And then if we have some new promotions or new hires, kind of recognizing those people. And then I focus the next couple slides on my updates or the big topics that I'm trying to share with everybody. So I'll avoid you guys the pain of playing the Talktrack, but I wanted to give you an idea of when you're using Talktrack and you're using a Miro, you do all the work up front, kind of getting your board set up, and it just makes talking to it so much easier. And it's one of those things, when I do a Talktrack, people are always like, man, how many takes did that take you? And I'm like, one. I had my board set up and I talked to the board and walked through it.
Yeah, I really like that board because I feel like, you're replacing kind of a lot of text with something really visual, right? So like if you can actually talk over a lot of these things, you don't actually have to put like a lot of chunky amounts of text on the board, and you can make it very visual and people can actually focus on your face and people and pictures. And I think that's just a lot more human in the way you actually communicate out to your company. So I think I really love that use case. Maybe Webbs, you want to share a bit about your use case?
Sure, yeah. I also have a board that I can share, which will, I think, illustrate. So I kind of bucketed, I was reflecting on like, how do I use Talktracks? Like, how would I kind of bucket the different uses I would have for them? And so these are kind of the three different areas. And I'll usually add a little speaker icon to denote that like, hey, there's a Talktrack that goes with this frame. Because I also tend to put frames behind the areas that are Talktracked so that folks know like not to shift things around so that it impacts the Talktrack. For folks who are new, it's this little button up here and it'll give you your list of Talktracks. I'm also not going to play mine because it's like a whole, thing through the streaming and whatnot. But the first way that I use it is in meeting preparation. So just giving people some, hey, in order for us to be as productive as possible, can you please fill out the to-do column with these particular items or anything you're interested in? And that way, when we get into the meeting, we can jump right into the list of things that we have instead of spending the time for people to prepare things up front. That's one way. The second one is what I call in your own words messaging. So as a product owner, one of the things that I have to do a lot is communicate what's the state of my team, what are the needs of my team, et cetera. And a lot of times in the past, that would have been something where I tell somebody who communicates it up the chain, and it ends up being this kind of game of telephone by the time it gets to the end person hearing the message. So what I really like about Talktracks is I can record a Talktrack on a Miro board and put that in my own words. And then the people that are trying to share the message of what is important, in this case, the example I used was trying to communicate the capacity that our team had for a given program increment. They can just share the Talktrack. So the people that are further up than me, in positions like Rob's, can actually hear my voice explain what the situation is with our team instead of relying on messaging passing from one person to the next. And then the last one is what I call sub-plans. So if I'm going to be out for some reason, like a couple months ago, I had to be out for our sprint planning, and typically I run it. My team's perfectly capable of running it on their own, but in case they wanted to know sort of how I usually structure it, and also for scaffolding out and ownership of different things, it gives them a framework to work from. They can go back, watch the Talktrack and see how things are structured and what my thought process is behind certain elements of the plan. And then reference back to it in order to build their own capacity to run it on their own or take the elements that they like and evolve it into their own thing. So they have a walkthrough of how I typically do things. So those are kind of my three buckets of how I typically use Talktracks.
Nice. Yeah, I really like that. It's like kind of you're not being a blocker, right? Like if you're out, somebody else can still run the workshop, someone can still run the retro or whatever it is that you need to get done. And I think that's actually something that we do also a lot at Miro. Vihar, I'm sure you can relate as a fellow product owner about many of those. You maybe can take something away from those use cases too.
All right. Another, well, really quickly, Rob, there was a follow-up in the chat about your monthly, your updates as CIO. So basically the question was, you're using this for CIO updates, and do you do it in person or remote live? I wonder if you could maybe just recap your answer there.
Yeah, just real quick, like the Talktrack saves me from blocking like 30 minutes or 15 minutes of time on everybody's calendar, right? So I send the Talktrack religiously once a month. Every quarter we do a normal all hands where I'll go to one of the locations and we'll host an all hands and do it live in person for those people there and broadcast it over WebEx. But no, the Talktrack is just, that's the beauty of it. You send it out and people watch it when they want. And it avoids blocking any time on their calendar. And I usually send them on the weekend, and I'm always surprised. Like I usually by Sunday night, I've already got feedback. So it's funny.
You kind of wrap up your week before it started. That's great. So I kind of like want to maybe pivot to the next question, which is kind of related. And I think you're basically answering your perspective on that, Rob, but I can ask you right back. So if we want to summarize and just give one benefit or top benefit that Talktrack gives you, what is it?
To me, it's just being able to tell a story, like, and do it quickly. It saves me time. If I was going to write an email and have to proof an email and have my chief of staff review the email and all this other stuff, it'd be a lot of churn and work for me. But, with the Miro board, I'm able to kind of throughout the month or throughout the week, kind of put my thoughts together and just drop them on the board as they come up. And then when I'm ready, when I have enough content and I feel like, okay, it's time to send the update out, it's all there and ready. And I just walk through my board and talk to it. It saves me time, saves everybody else time.
Yeah, and totally resonate with the saves time aspect for sure, and the voice that you can add on it. Webbs, what are your thoughts on the benefit?
Theme, I think, the asynchronous communication is huge. Just like not having to get a bunch of people, like do that meeting Jenga of getting everyone in one slot at the same time is so helpful. And so I would say beyond that, it's the being able to share your story in your own voice. So being able to communicate to others without having to rely on that game of telephone to get your message across, and being able to just, I'm recording this in my own voice. And I think the way that Talktrack is built makes it super easy to do. So you can do it really fast, kind of like Rob was saying earlier. If you have your whole board set up, all you're really doing is this walkthrough of, this is what I'm talking about. So really being able to communicate in your own voice, aside from the asynchronous piece, I think is great. And the replayability too is great. So putting my kind of teacher hat on, that ability to go back and rewatch again and again and again is so helpful when it comes to trying to scaffold autonomy within teams, trying to scaffold someone to take over something that you've owned for a long time. It gives them a guide that they can revisit over and over again.
Yeah, I love your answer, Webbs, because like I forgot about it. Like when you're doing the Talktrack and you're trying to emphasize something, that emotion comes across, right? And the genuine, just to me, it's more genuine than just sending an email and then you're like, did the guy even write the email? So I love that answer.
Yeah, I also love the answer too. I'll be honest, I maybe didn't expect that because I thought maybe both of you'd focus on just meeting time save, which you did talk about, Rob. And I think that's like, I guess that's the that's sort of more of the equation, right? Or the numbers part of it, where you save meeting time. But I think the really special part is about adding your own voice, which I think is great. And frankly, thinking back to some of the principles we used when we were building this, that was one of the things we wanted to stay true to. So I'm glad to hear that.
I actually think maybe there are a lot of questions coming in. Maybe we should already start with like answering the audience questions. I see a lot of interest in Talktrack, which is great. We have about 5 more minutes, so I would love to answer some of these questions. All right.
Do it.
Yeah. Do Talktracks provide captions or other language subtitles?
I can answer that, Sophia. Yeah, so that's a great question. Yeah, so Talktrack does provide captions, and those are auto-generated. So those are generated for all of those, any Talktrack that you record. So when you come and you want to play it, there's a little icon on the playback side, and then you can click on the captions button, and you can. Yes, Sophia's actually going to show you right there. You can click on that captions button, and then it will show the captions every time you play a Talktrack back. The question about language is yes. So we support several different languages. We have our localized languages at Miro as well. Those are all supported and detected along with several others. So most languages, a lot of languages are covered. I think it's about 20 plus. And it's something that we're really excited about. And it's a feature that I think a lot of our users really enjoy.
All right. Next question I see. How has Talktrack helped with connection for remote employees? I'm actually, you know what? Maybe we have a bit of time. I just want to show like one of the boards from our field marketing team, because at Miro, we have a field marketing team and they're very distributed and it's a very remote team and they don't get to actually see each other. And I just want to play a talk track from one of them about how they're using Talktrack to stay connected as a remote team. So let me just quickly do that. All right, I think it was here.
Hey everyone, my name is Laura and I'm on the regional field marketing team here at Miro and I'm based in Sydney, Australia. So our regional field marketing team have marketers all over the world. I have coworkers in Amsterdam, in LA, Sydney, of course, Paris, Munich, London, and it is impossible to find a time to have a team meeting. So you are currently on our team meeting board, which we call Field Fridays. This is our way of meeting asynchronously each week. So what happens is we each come in on our respective Friday afternoons and we fill out a little box, and we do this with Talktrack recording. So each week I'll come in and put my updates for the week, my goals for next week, any risk blockers, alignments, or ask for help that I need from my team members, and anything else I want to share. So this could be something fun you're doing on the weekend. And we'll record it via a Talktrack. So that's me. I've done my Friday afternoon team meeting. What I'll then do is on my Monday morning, log in, I'll watch everyone else's Talktrack from around the globe. And I'm able to, because it's Talktrack, leave comments live as I'm watching the recordings and interact with everyone's updates. And it's a really nice way for me and all of us across the globe to kick off the week on our own time, to stay aligned on our goals, to make sure that we're engaged with each other via the comments and links. You can see there's lots and lots of comments on our boards here. As well as do it in a time zone that works for us. So we're not having middle of the night phone calls. We're not having early morning phone calls. One of the things that's made this so much easier for us to do is, of course, Talktrack, which is great because as you can see, it moves along the board as you move along the board, as you're watching the recording. And as a spectator, as I mentioned, you can go in, comment, and interact. So I'm not in another app and I'm not having to switch back and forth. It's all done within the Miro board, which has made these meetings or asynchronous meetings even easier to conduct.
All right. Yeah, I just want to stop there because I think we get the idea. But I think that is one example of how a real life team is using it to stay connected with people that they, don't necessarily get to meet in a sync meeting. So yeah, just wanted to give that example and show it to you. All right. How would a Talktrack work in situations where teams collaborate asynchronously on a board that constantly changes? Vihar, do you want?
I can answer that. That's a great question. So the great thing about Talktrack is it's actually not a standard screen recording. And what's interesting is maybe you've used some other screen recording tools in the past, and what it does is it creates a snapshot of whatever you're recording on your screen, and that's the truth. So if you do work on a board that changes a lot, then you have to just keep on making new recordings again and again and again. And the neat thing about Talktrack is it's a bit of a layer on top of a board. So I think Rob was even alluding to this, like if you structure your board in a way that's fairly consistent, so if you have different areas of work where, let's say you're working on a roadmap, and your roadmap may change over time, but you kind of have a set frame or a set screen or an area where your roadmap is. You can just, kind of re-record. You can either re-record a Talktrack or you can just update, make changes on your roadmap later, and your Talktrack can still be relevant. Another way that you can also kind of revisit things that change is we have this neat feature that not too many people know about. It's called our board history playback feature. So sometimes when you have Talktracks and boards that change a lot, maybe your Talktrack is not as relevant for the board that's at hand. Well, you can go and play the older version of that Talktrack. So if you go to a Talktrack, you hit that same gear that Sophia was talking about, that showed you, that had the closed captions. There's a little button there. Thanks for showing that, Sophia, called the original version, right? So that's our board history version. If you click that, then you get sort of like a read-only view. That is a Talktrack that was what the board looked like when the Talktrack was made. So either way, however you want to collaborate, we want to give our users the power to either work on boards that change a lot and have more structure, and you can use the same Talktrack, but if your board content's changing all the time, you can also use our previous version of the Talktrack as well using this feature. Sophia, do we still have time for more questions?
I think honestly, maybe we can have like 3 more minutes, like, and then we can like
sure.
end it. I don't think we have like hard stop, right? I think maybe we'll just ask for a couple more questions if folks have time. Right?
Yeah, Sophia, if you don't mind, I want to jump in because I see there's a lot here for us, but I also see one here for Rob. So it seems like, Rob, your CIO update is getting a lot of traction and interest. So there's a lot of follow-up here. The question here for you is, how did you make your update interactive? Or did you?
I guess the last card on the board is the feedback. And that's where I have people, they can come in and they can add their name, they can anonymously, provide the feedback, but they can create their notes. One lesson I learned, like when I did it the first time, I didn't lock the board, and, people coming in that hadn't used Miro before, they're like moving everything around. So I do lock the board except for the last card with the feedback, and allow people to, create the sticky notes and provide either anonymous or they can put their name to the feedback. And then that will help drive the next update, as I always cover the feedback from the previous one.
Got it. I think that's a great answer. And I think there was another question earlier that was asking a little bit more about like how, is there ways to interact with the recording? And I think that's a great way, right? So if you want to really control your narrative, maybe you can lock frames. That's a feature that maybe not everyone knows about, or you can lock your content. So you basically just click and select all the content you want to lock, and you press, there's a little lock button that appears and it locks, and then no one can move it, right? And that makes it a way that you can really control the narrative if you don't want others to change, and then you can leave certain areas of the content unlocked, and that's where people can add their dynamic feedback. Additionally, another great thing about Talktrack is since it is a layer like on top of the board, you can add comments and other things on top of it. So you can add comments on top of the recording directly. You can add stickies, emojis, etc., like Sophia showed. Sophia, I'm noticing that we're at time. I think there's a lot of questions there, but I think we might just have to end the session, and maybe we can continue to answer those questions later. But I think a big thank you to everyone. First of all, our guests here, Rob and Webbs, really thank you for your time. It's been great. And I think thanks to everyone here who joined, like in general, we really appreciate questions. Apologies if you weren't able to get to them. I think I'm seeing that we're going to be providing some contact information for you too, for some questions that may not be answered. And we're excited to help you on your journey, and good luck with your first and many more Talktracks in the future.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.